Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this live stream defending the Uyghurs this Ramadan. So, what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be having a discussion about what is happening to our Uyghur brothers and sisters in Chinese occupied East Turkestan. And, Alhamdulillah, when it comes to the month of Ramadan, it's a month of mercy, it's a month of love in terms of reconnecting with the Book of Allah, reconnecting with our Creator, spending time with our loved ones. Ramadan has always had this special place in all of our hearts because it reminds us of our friends, our family, our childhood. It's a very nostalgic thing indeed, Ramadan. And I just want everybody to contrast that with the difficulties that are happening that Muslims are having to deal with in Chinese occupied East Turkestan. It's a very difficult situation. In fact, psychologically, if you imagine that, having the fact that you're going to fast and you're having people watching you, you're having people monitoring you, you're forced to eat pork, you're forced to drink alcohol, you're forced to show you're not fasting, you're forced to break your fast, your children are not allowed to break their fast, you're not allowed to read the Quran, you're not allowed to pray, you're not allowed to be a Muslim. Yet this is the situation that is taking place in Chinese occupied East Turkestan. And it is so important that, we don't just sit here and talk about the issue. Right? It's easy to talk. It's easy to say, we really need to deal with this situation. We've got a lot of difficulties as Muslims. We've got this, we've got that. But the real big thing is, what differences are we going to make in our lives? What changes are we going to make, rather, in our lives that's actually going to help the Uyghurs? Because it's not just simply a case of, let's just sit here and sulk and cry about what's happening. No, let's look at solutions. Let's look at what you can do. Let's look at the actions that can be taken to stop this genocide, to stop this killing, to stop this destruction of the Uyghur people. Ramadan is a month in which the early Muslims faced a lot of difficulties, not only because they were fasting in the hot desert, but also because they had hostile enemies who were trying to destroy them. And in this month, they went through struggles, they went through problems, yet they never lost faith, even though they were being persecuted, even though they went through difficulties, even though, some of them died under persecution and oppression, but they never gave up that faith. And the beauty of the people of East Turkestan is that despite the horrors that they're facing today, despite the terror of what they're facing today and the oppression, they're not giving up faith. They are still working. They are still, striving. They're still trying to maintain their Islamic identity. They're still trying to have a relationship with Allah and to make sure that, the next generation doesn't lose, completely its Islamic identity. And that's what it's really about. Now, if you're just joining this live stream, please share this video so more people can watch this. Please tell your friends and family about it. I'm going to be bringing on a guest in around 20 minutes time, Louisa Grieve from the Uyghur Human Rights Project. We can go over what they do and why it's important for everyone to support them, and also just having a conversation directly with you. So is anyone coming on? Yes, Sister Samira, we are having a guest come on in about 20 minutes time. Louisa Grieve from the Human Rights Project. From Muhammad Daman, Assalamu alaikum to you as well, my brother. So thank you for commenting. Please share this video. Let's get more people on this live stream before the guest actually joins. Let's start speaking about the Uyghurs. Allah teaches us something beautiful. There's something beautiful that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. He says that, I'm paraphrasing the narration here, but Allah is in your support when you're in the support of your brother. So when we are sitting here on a live stream, thinking, pondering, worrying, helping the Uyghurs and seeing what we can do, we are in an act of ibadah. And apart from being in an act of ibadah, we are also in aid of our brother and in aid of our sisters, in the aid of other Muslims, and Allah will be in aid of us. Now, this is from brother Mustafa Uyghur, who says, "Thank you. This is obviously, very heartwarming to see that, mashallah, we have Uyghurs who are watching this as well. Uyghurs are, as we all know, it's very difficult for them to actually be involved in activism, yet they still do it because of reprisals to their families. So may Allah make everything easy for you. Let us know, brother Mustafa, if you faced any issues in terms of yourself, in terms of a Uyghur, if you're living in a foreign country, whether you're being surveilled or when you were in East Turkestan, the sort of issues that took place there as well. Okay. So while this is warming up, like I mentioned before, please share this live stream so more and more people can join. There's about 20 people watching now. Let's build it up to around 100. 100 is a good number, I think. This is a beautiful verse of the Quran that's being shared by Save the Uyghurs. And this brotherhood of yours is a single brotherhood, and I am your Lord and cherisher. Therefore, fear me. Can you tell us how we can help the Uyghurs? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. We are asking people to be involved in activism, to get active online, to speak about, how we can be in aid and support of them. So there's obviously a donation link that I've been pushing out, which is here, which anybody can go and click, and you can actually support the Uyghur Human Rights Project. The Uyghur Human Rights Project is a very important organization which is involved in a lot of work when it comes to the Uyghurs. So let's support them. Let's see what we can do. Okay, while you guys are doing that, I'm just going to be changing the logo of this live stream to add something. Okay. Okay, good. Let me know in the comment section where you are calling in from, where you're watching from, rather. Can you please comment in there while I sort out a little thing? Please tell others to join this live stream as well. We want as many people to join as possible. Libya, Sweden, UAE, Bangladesh, Germany, Birmingham, excellent, UAE. All right, good. India, okay, how many of you guys are aware of the work of the Uyghur Human Rights Project? Lebanon, mashallah. Lebanon. I've been to Lebanon. It's a beautiful place. Alrighty. Now, can you guys see in the pinned comment that I put up a pinned comment for Uyghur Human Rights Project? Can you guys see that pinned comment? Please let me know if you can see it. Yes, you can see it. Okay, good. When you click on the link that I sent, what do you see? Please let me know what you see. I just want to make sure the link is working for you guys. Okay, you can see it. Link is not clickable. Samira Owadi is saying it ain't working. Okay, good. Thank you. I needed to know that. Okay, I'm going to try something else. Okay, now I've pinned a comment. Can you click on this now? Is it working now, that link? Can anyone let me know? Do you see the new pinned comment? Do you guys see the new pinned comment? Still not working. So weird. Okay. Jazakallah khair for that. Let's see. Hey guys, I'm going to try something else. Okay, I've put up a new link. Working. Okay, good. Very good. Yep. Okay, good. All right, fine. Yep, it's working. That's brilliant. That is brilliant, guys. Jazakallah khair for that. Okay. So, like I've been saying, Ramadan for us is very different from how it is to others. However, I am interested in knowing, firstly, what time is everyone breaking their fast today? So if you can put in the time that you're breaking your fast today, are you fasting like? Depends which part of the world you're from. I'm guessing in Pakistan they've broken their fast. In other places, they haven't. Here in the UK, we're breaking it around 8 o'clock. 8:10, 6:20 from Egypt. 8:30, 8:17, 7:45. India is at 6:13. Not bad. Okay, 8:45. What else? Who else? There's loads of other people on here. Please comment. What time are you guys breaking your fast today? 1:22 p.m. Texas. 8:22 South Africa. Okay. In Egypt. Okay, good. Let me just show you guys a video which I came across. Hopefully I can find it.
What did delete? YouTube.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, guys, and then I'm going to play something. Let me know if it's if it's playing properly for you guys. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see that on your screen? Can you guys let me know if you can see that? Yes. Okay. Let me know if the sound's working.
مسحوا فقط الفيديوهات اللي انا مصور فيها للمسجد فقط. They just deleted what they delete. YouTube small video of the mosque of the mosque here. They just delete the mosque video, right? Yeah. Why? It's not okay to take photos for the mosque. Why? I don't know. بيخافوا قاعدين بيعملوا شيء غلط، في شيء غلط قاعدين بيعملوه. السلام عليكم. وعليكم. يا بتشوف في خوف بعينهم، مش عارف من ايش. حق الصيام ممنوع عندهم. رمضان ها؟ Fasting؟ رمضان؟ سألته أنت صايم؟ ما فهم علي. صديقي الصيني سأله راح عشان يثبت إنه مش صايم. Maybe they don't like it. You can eat. المفروض إني أنا في منطقة للمسلمين، والغريب أكثر إنه إحنا في رمضان ومسجد وموعد صلاة وما في حدا بيصلي والناس تلعب حول المسجد. إيش قاعد بصير؟
So you're Muslim? Or most of Uyghurs Muslims, right?
Yeah.
But they don't they don't see Ramadan or something.
Oh, they have Ramadan.
They have Ramadan, but they don't do this in public.
Like this question is not good for me.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Tens upon thousands of Uyghurs from all across Xinjiang converge on this mosque to worship.
وهاد عام 2016 اليوم احنا رحنا بعام 2019.
Can break? I can break.
1:45.
هيك صار المكان مش للصلاة فقط للسياح، فيه دفع دخولية بتيكت. No pray here.
Only visit. Yeah. What's the name of this mosque? Eitka. How old?
More than 500 years.
500 years.
كأنه داخل على مسجد، داخل على مزرعة. هاي بسيطة. شوف المسجد هذا مغلق تماما مسكرينه. وشوف هذا المسجد صار سوق من جوا. Looks like a mall. طب صحيح. وين المصلين؟ مو فيها الصلاة والصوم وتربية اللحية. وانك تقول السلام عليكم. شباب المسلم فيه يتزوج صيني وياكل لحم خنزير ويشرب كحول.
So you guys saw that video. It's a very disturbing video. It's actually Ramadan in East Turkestan, and in 2016, there's all these things going on, and they can't fast, they can't pray. The mosque has turned into a museum, and we need to be aware of this. This is the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II. And in terms of Muslims, no Muslim group on earth has as much difficulty as the Uyghur Muslims do. And if you watch that video of the Arab brother, mashallah, who went there, and you can see there's a lot of fear amongst the Uyghurs. That you can see, when they asked, does anyone remember that scene where the guy is asked, "Are you fasting?" and he went to go eat something? Yeah. So that's a very common thing. That's a very, very common thing, that they're so scared and they're forced to break their fast, and just to prove themselves, they show that they're not fasting. So we're talking about a very difficult situation here, right? We're talking about a very difficult situation, and a situation which is not going to, Allah says in the Quran, He doesn't change the condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. Unless we do something about the situation, then there's not much that we can actually do, right? So Uyghur Human Rights Project, today I'm inviting them to actually jump onto the live stream, because what we want to do in this month is we want to support organizations that help the Uyghurs, defend the Uyghurs, who are there right at the forefront, to make sure that these crimes are documented. Governments are lobbied to basically stop this type of behavior from the Chinese government. So it's if you go to Uyghur Human Rights Project and you go to their website, you'll be able to see all the great work that they actually do. They publish reports, and what they're asking for is global policy change, global policy response. That's what they really want to do. They want to they want to make it so that it's not normalized what crimes are being done by the Chinese government, that these things are actually seriously challenged. Now, I mean, there's a question, there's a thing that Brother Kamran Sahil wrote: we need to get them out of their land. Land is more important than deen. Now, what we're speaking about, Brother Kamran Sahil, thank you for your comment. What we're speaking about is 11 million Uyghurs. 11 million Uyghurs, right? And East Turkestan is a huge, huge place. So getting all of them out when the Chinese government is oppressing them and not letting them leave is very, very difficult. It's near impossible. So, what we need to do is what we can right now, by supporting the people who are right at the forefront of this crisis, and they are working to make sure that there is effective global policy response. Okay, now, as you guys know, in the month of Ramadan, we give charity, and usually charity is associated with food, or it's associated with wells and these things in Ramadan, which we do, which is great and fantastic. But it's going to be super important for the Uyghurs, not just that we're going to be there to help them and give them food and water and these things, and there's other charities for that, but we're looking for global policy response. And we just had Louisa joining us. Welcome, Louisa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
So, Louisa, I was just sharing with the viewers that in the month of Ramadan, we usually associate charity and giving with giving to humanitarian things like wells and water for the poor, food parcels, relief during flood and earthquakes and natural disasters and stuff. However, when it comes to the Uyghurs, people automatically think, okay, how can I provide food for them or clothing for them or these types of things for them? But the work that the Uyghur Human Rights Project does in terms of the advocacy, the research, and crucially the global policy response has far greater impact than just trying to feed a Uyghur who just escaped a camp, which obviously other charities are doing, which is great and fantastic. But it's about doing things like getting goods from East Turkestan banned, by getting governments to actually understand that violations are happening in terms of the standard human rights commitments that the governments actually have. So that advocacy, yes, it's not feeding people. Yes, it's not doing what it looks like is the direct tangible thing, but the greater impact is far more than just feeding people or giving them some form of aid.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Sabler. You're absolutely right. Uyghurs are in chains. Actually, many of them are in literal chains. They are, the Uyghurs that are on the so-called re-education camps, where the Chinese government is curing Uyghurs of their devotion to Islam. It's telling them you have a mental disease, which is your Islamic culture, your Islamic belief, and your Islamic practice. Even assalamu alaikum is a sign of a disease and a crime. And many people are in chains, leg chains, sometimes tied to a corner in these cells where they're being so-called re-educated. And if we can break people free from their chains by mobilizing a global response and making sure that corporations are not profiting from some of the workplaces where these imprisoned Uyghurs are put, then we can really bring a light and help people, break free of their chains as part of our religious obligation for all global religions, and certainly for Islam.
Absolutely. And, when we're speaking about global policy response, which is what Uyghur Human Rights Project is advocating for, the impact of one policy change has a direct response from the Chinese government, because they don't really care about human rights, but they do care about economics. They do care about their goods being banned. They do care about their perception. So when the Uyghur Human Rights Project pushes forward a particular report, or shows how these violations are taking place, or actually documents things, like in the case of Sister Dursane, then the Chinese government knows that actually this is going to have a direct impact on our economic goals, and essentially their military and their police state is funded by the economy. So we're really, in a way, the way I think about the Uyghur Human Rights Project is going for the jugular vein of the oppression, rather than trying to patch up the wounds, right? It's about really dealing with decisively what the issue is. Now, for everybody watching, I've put up the donation link, and I just want to share with you guys this page. So this is the Launch Good page, which has been set up. Alhamdulillah, our goal is $100,000, inshallah. We've hit $22,000. So I was really surprised, and I was overwhelmed that last night when I was doing some fundraising, by the time I woke up in the morning, it increased by around $10,000. So, I mean, it's a blessed day. Definitely Friday is a blessed day. So when you donate on this link, 100% of the donation goes to the Uyghur Human Rights Project. Okay. Now there's a lot of people that have been donating. And I just want to highlight something. Even though some people, you'll see when you scroll across the page, that they're donating like $1,000 and $500 and these types of things. Other people are donating $10, $5, $3. I just want to say, look, it's not about the donation amount. It's about what you can actually give, right? So look, for example, an anonymous kind soul, $2, right? But when you look here, Jasim Isa is $500. But the reality is, it's not the amount you give, it's what you can give. So I want everybody watching that's here right now, share the link. If you've donated already, donate some more. Even if you can give $1, or if you can give $1,000, go ahead and give it, because this money is going to go to that global policy response which the Uyghur Human Rights Project is advocating for. And this money, for me, is so trivial compared to the impact it's going to have for people. And the reason why I'm really passionate about Uyghur Human Rights Project, and I want to share this story again with the viewers, is I've worked with many charities in the past. And I've seen directly, when I was with Sister Dursane in Turkey last year, when Arsalan rang Louisa on WhatsApp, there was a conversation in which she was very reassuring. She didn't know I was listening on loudspeaker, because obviously we were dealing with the situation. But she said, I remember her saying, we need to keep her alive. We're going to deal with it. Don't worry. And I heard desperation. I heard certainty. I heard will in that call. And a few days later, Dursane was given a visa. She left to go to America. She got medical treatment. Obviously, many people from Uyghur Human Rights Project, and I'm sure other people are involved as well. So I'm telling you guys, this is stuff I've seen with my own eyes. This isn't hearsay. And Uyghur Human Rights Project has been around since 2004. And the work that they do is absolutely crucial. This Ramadan, I'm not fundraising for any Uyghur organization except for the Uyghur Human Rights Project, not because there aren't other great organizations out there, but because this is the jugular vein of the oppression. This is to stop the Chinese government's economic juggernaut so it can stop its oppressive juggernaut.
It's so impressive. My heart is really filled. I'm very emotional now to know so many people. They can't give a lot of money, but they give anyway. So heartwarming, and so much. Really, it's a source of hope for Uyghurs. All the Uyghurs in diaspora. My organization is in the U.S., led by Uyghurs, and all of them have relatives who are impacted by this. And to know that, one, all of you are supporting. Two, that the media is paying attention. What would have happened if Tursunay's medical treatment had not progressed? If she was stuck in Turkey, she was very afraid that there might be some political pressure from the Chinese government to tell the Turkish government to keep her quiet. She didn't dare to talk to the media, and she was in medical trouble. Once we got here to the US in September, it took over a month just for emergency medical treatment. And then she, of course, had COVID. And then in December, she finally was able to talk to the BBC. And do you know the outcome of that, right? She wouldn't have done it if she'd stayed in Turkey, but we were able to get to our own government in the US, get the State Department to issue that visa very quickly. Actually, the ambassador, US ambassador to Turkey, wasn't directly involved personally.
Yeah.
She came, she gave an interview to the BBC. BBC had already done 6 months of interviews and came out with this explosive, heart-stabbing report about systematic sexual abuse by the Chinese guards and Chinese government in these camps. That prompted, what did that prompt? That prompted the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and the Prime Minister of Australia, and the US President, all to make direct comments about the horrifying things that the Chinese government was doing. So that her voice prompted the heads of major governments to go on the record and to add to the pressure of the Chinese government. But you're right about the economics. Do you want me to talk about that too?
Yes, absolutely. And just before we do that, I just want everybody to
there she is. There she is.
Yeah, to everybody to understand the significance of what Louisa is saying. The story, once it broke, and I'm not exaggerating, guys. Here, I said to Arsalan when we were with her, because initially the plan was to interview her. I said we can't interview her; she's in no fit state. And once we left the apartment, I literally, almost like, it was very difficult for me emotionally, and I said she's not going to make it. She's not going to make it. I don't think she's going to make it. Now, once she made it, and then the story came out, like Louisa said, world governments had to respond to the story. Not only was it that this was that the way that she broke the story and the way that the information came, it added to the urgency of what was happening, because obviously there was information before this. However, what's important is the Chinese Foreign Ministry directly had to respond to this story. And in fact, I remember, I'm not sure which of their foreign dignitaries this was, but somebody was holding up a picture of her, and then they were trying to basically say, no, this is not true, and they're trying to challenge the whole narrative. And what's very surprising about this story is, because it was so vividly captured and it was so impactful, that it ingrained and reinvigorated. I, in fact, felt the night the story broke, and on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, amongst my own friends, on WhatsApp, there was messages going out about this story. I felt there was a re-energization of the whole Uyghur movement, because everyone was like, this is ridiculous. I remember there's a Uyghur sister from America, I've forgotten her name. I think her name is Aidan Anwar or something. And she literally on Twitter said, I can't stop crying, right? And her tweet, I think it was retweeted like 1,000 times. And she was just talking about how evil this story was. I know people who said they couldn't complete the story. They couldn't complete reading the article, right? So, of course, we're going to speak about the economics, but the gravity of the story itself, and the impact it actually has. I 100% believe there's somebody in the Chinese government. They're doing their protocols, and somebody is asking the question, who let this woman out? I'm sure somebody's saying, who let this woman out? Because the damage that's been done to the Communist Party's image is irreparable, and it's something that's so significant that it's I would actually say it's a domino effect. It's nothing less than a domino effect.
Well said. And this has an impact not only on governments, and absolutely the Chinese government. The foreign ministry spokesman had to spend one of their regular press conferences in Beijing slamming this woman, smearing her with awful slander, and also the other women who spoke up. And you have to be brave. We know all victims of sexual assault hesitate to speak. It's traumatic to tell the story. They're afraid that it has that people will react even when they're open-minded, and they recognize it's not your fault. There is still a stigma. There is still a sense that the family will be affected, even shame. And the Chinese government played on that and unconscionably smeared the moral character of Tursunai and the other women who testified.
Yeah. They tried to claim that, they had sexually transmitted diseases, and they know that Uyghur women, there's an honor culture, people, she's a married woman. So, to try and, just dishonor her as well. However, when these stories were coming out about what the Chinese government's claiming, it just added to their own incompetence, because, well, why were they doing these medical tests, even if what they're saying is true? And of course it's not, but what gives you the right to detain someone and do a medical test and these types of things? And I felt, Louisa, that there was a lot of panic when this story broke out, that there was, I felt it took them off guard. What was your reaction? Because I remember seeing you on the BBC report as well. When all this was happening, what did you see online?
Absolutely. I personally felt a huge turning point, that the Chinese government's narrative that life for Uyghurs in the Xinjiang autonomous region was very happy. The Chinese government has been touting the fact that Uyghurs are getting jobs, they're getting educated, quote unquote. Not this kind of image, but supposedly these are schools. Do they look like schools to you? But that image, that narrative was succeeding in some places, particularly in places where the local media are taking their cue from governments that don't want to upset China because of investment, loans, and business. So that includes a lot of Muslim majority countries where the media is afraid to upset China, and where the owners of the media have media deals, or they're close to the government that doesn't want to be forced to speak out. And the Chinese government thought this story is going to start making a crack in that code of silence. And it really makes it much harder for global companies, actually, who are still claiming that there's no problem, that they have no human rights abuses when they're trading with Chinese companies that are using Uyghur forced labor. But that story is very, very thin, as you say. Common sense tells you. And the Chinese government did start panicking. It's absolutely true. Yeah.
And definitely, I think you're absolutely spot on. It was a turning point. And guys, we're not just here tonight to simply talk about how bad the situation is. We want to do something about the situation. There is something that everybody can get involved in, and we ourselves, it's very easy to sometimes feel a little bit overwhelmed. I'm sure many of us have this feeling that the situation is so bad. What do we do? It's difficult. China's such a big country. What can we possibly do? However, we're only accountable for what is within our power, right? We're not accountable for things that, are completely out of our remit. So what I want everybody to do, in the comment section, there's a pinned comment with the link to the Launch Good. And I want everybody, if you're watching this right now, if you haven't donated already, please donate. And if you don't have the funds to donate, just share this link, share it with your friends and family. And let's hit that target. I mean, obviously, we're not going to, and I'm not going to say this, lightly. $100,000 is really nothing, guys, compared to what we're trying to do, right? Like it says in the Torah, like it says in the Bible, like it says in the Quran, saving one life is like saving the lives of all, right? Saving the life of just Tursunai I mean, millions, trillions, you could put that together, that wouldn't be enough. $100,000, it is going to have a big impact in terms of the work that can be done. They can pay designers, they can publish more reports, they can lobby further, and the impact that it has is completely disproportional in terms of the exponential result against the Chinese government, which is having to spend, I would say, the Uyghur Human Rights Project has probably just cost them in the last year billions in terms of PR, billions in terms of economics. And this is why organizations like Uyghur Human Rights Project are so impactful, because they're going for the jugular vein. Now, Louisa, I just want to read out to you some of the donations that we are getting in. This is just to encourage everybody who's watching. So, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Yep, here we go. So, Tariq Salti, $20, Muhammad, $35, $10, $15, 10, 100, 3, 10, 25, 100, 10, 10, 200, 10, 30. Louisa, you know what's amazing about this, right? Some of the people donating, they're coming back and they're donating again. I'm actually seeing their names again, right?
That's fantastic.
So your work is going to go towards these things, to provide emergency humanitarian relief for Uyghur refugees. For example, what we saw with Dursane, interview concentration camp survivors and help tell their story. So guys, I've interviewed concentration camp survivors in the past on this channel, right? However, just simply interviewing a person and getting that information out there is not really the main point. The main point is to do it in a way that you have, for example, relationships that the BBC has with the Uyghur Human Rights Project, and to do it in a way so that international lawyers can see that there are violations happening in terms of human rights, so that governments can actually impact. Because look, to put it in a crude way, if you show the Australian foreign minister a picture of a Uyghur child who is in a concentration camp, in a way that's kind of, I know it sounds really harsh, but it's kind of meaningless, because it's just an image and it's just a child. And of course, they're going to give you moral support. And of course, you're going to feel that something needs to be done. But for a government to act, you need to show them through research that these are international human rights standards. These are being violated. Here is the evidence for it. You simply can't use emotivism. You simply can't show them images and say, look, this is so bad, we have to act. And that's exactly what the Uyghur Human Rights Project is doing. In a way, sorry, Louisa, for some reason you dropped off the live stream. In a way, many of the things that we're doing online in terms of our own activism, we're sharing stuff, we're doing these types of things. This is easy to do. It's actually very easy to actually do this. The difficult thing is putting together the research and the publication, and then lobbying the governments to not only read your research, to not only understand your research, to not only respond to your research, but to make sure that there's effective global policy response to the research, right? Then you get things like, Louisa, if you can remind us with the bill that Trump signed, which stopped the goods coming in from East Turkestan, things like this can actually take place.
Yes. So in the US, on June 17th last year, a new law was enacted, signed by President Trump, who doesn't care about human rights, but he signed this law because it was passed unanimously in the Senate and almost unanimously in the House of Representatives. It's called the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act. Actually, it was fairly simple. It simply declared US policy was to express concern and take action on atrocity crimes against the Uyghur people. And it required different bureaucracies within the US government to write reports and create strategies for addressing the problem. And right after that, and the most actionable thing was to impose targeted sanctions that Chinese government officials would pay a cost. And as you've talked about, cost in reputation, cost in companies' concern about their reputation if they're working with factories that might be using Uyghur forced labor. The first sanctions, anywhere in the world on Chinese officials, government officials came out in July last year. And then in March this year, finally, it's such hard work. Finally, 4 countries and regions cooperated. It was the European Union, the government of the UK, government of Canada, and the government of US sanctioned police officials who are responsible for these atrocities. And that was hard work. So you can tell the uphill climb. You're saying, the Chinese government has a lot of influence in the UN, has a lot of trade relationships that governments and businesses do not want to disrupt. So when all of your supporters and when you're putting any donations in to UHRP, which is a small NGO, you're helping us tip the balance against this gigantic obstacle. I mean, that's why the Chinese government thinks it can get away with a war on Islam and nobody's going to say anything, because they have so much power. And so it is up to us, with your help, to do that. And with this law that passed, and there's a new law. Should I talk about it?
Yes, please.
There's a bill that has not passed yet. For listeners in the United States, especially, please call your senator and ask them to support the Uyghur. If you could click on the first box on this website, it says call Congress. And say you wish, contact Congress. This is really mostly for Americans, to support the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which will tighten up. It's already illegal in the US to import forced labor goods. And this will make the US policy say all products that come from the Uyghur region are at such high risk of being made by forced labor and implicated in gross human rights violations. We will make a presumption that they're made with forced labor, and you can only import if you can prove that they're not. So it shifts the burden of proof. And unfortunately, there's some resistance to this bill by American businesses that, of course, they don't support forced labor, but they all think it's inconvenient. So this is the kind of obstacle we're up against. But I would urge people who are in the UK, in Australia, in Belgium, there are pending laws there. So if you can write an op-ed, write a letter to the editor on your local news, or contact your own member of parliament and say, what are you doing about the Uyghur crisis? There are active bills pending elsewhere in other countries, and that every person's voice makes a difference. We're lucky enough to live in democracies where we can do that. But even if you live in a country where you say, okay, my MP never listens to me, they still need to hear from voices around the world who are genuinely concerned. So we're really hoping people in Malaysia and in Indonesia and Pakistan, you have elected representatives, contact them. Or ask religious leaders to talk about it in Friday prayers or in their own websites.
Yeah, and the small difference that your donation makes, overall, it turns into an avalanche. The snowball turns into the avalanche. So, like this new bill that Louisa's speaking about, this is an absolute nightmare for the Chinese government, because essentially what's going to happen is they're just going to realize it's costing us a lot more to oppress the Uyghurs than the benefit we're getting out of it. And maybe we should rethink. Maybe we should, since we call it the Uyghur Autonomous Region, let's give them, the rights which they themselves even have in their own laws. Obviously, there's going to take a lot more for the Chinese government to actually change its behavior than what we're speaking about. But these things definitely send those shockwaves through. Now, for those people who are donating, I just wanted to say, thank you. We've had some more donations coming in. And some of you guys are donating anonymously. Some are donating without that. I think it's very important, guys, that if you are donating and you're not leaving your email address, which is fine, the problem is that once this is over, then the Uyghur Human Rights Project, if they want to do follow-up and they have all this data and your email's missing, then they won't be able to contact you. So if you want to make a donation anonymously, that's fine, but please still leave your email address so in the future we can contact you. Because so far we've had how many people donating? We've had 683 people donating, and there's 683 unique people that we can contact, and we know exactly how much you donated, so we can ask you for other projects in the future, inshallah. But it's very important to make sure you do actually leave your email address as well. Now, Louisa, we just before you came on, we were speaking about Ramadan in the Uyghur region and what actually takes place there and how things are very difficult. Muslims all across are fasting right now. We're just about to hear in London, it's about to be sunset in just the next couple of minutes. So what is your Ramadan message to all of the Muslims out there and all of the non-Muslims and everybody watching who cares about human rights in this holy month with the Uyghurs? Like, why should they support the Uyghur Human Rights Project? Why is it that, like, for me, as somebody who'd never heard of you guys until last year, but now I'm a raving fan, why is this project so important for us to stop the oppression?
Well, what do we do during Ramadan, right? It's a time of reflection and trying to recommit ourselves to be our best selves.
Yep.
What we need to do as to be a good person, to be a person who lives out our faith and lives up to the principles that we know God wants us all to live up to. And that does include sometimes sacrifices, right? There's a 30-day pledge for these boycotts. It does mean caring for one's family and the poor. And so here we have a small, UHRP is a small NGO that has, I just heard our leader, Omer Kanat, just said to me that he's talking to a new potential employee. He said, you have to know, we're Uyghurs 24/7 here. You're not on and off whether you're working, at a job. And so for us, we're Uyghurs for 24/7, and we'd love to have, once a day during Ramadan, just to be a Uyghur for that 1 minute, say a prayer, give a donation, and share the links. That's how we can work together in solidarity with people who are being punished to an extreme degree because of their Islamic identity.
That's really well said. And when it comes to the month of Ramadan, as Muslims, we are fasting, we are praying, we are reading the Quran, we're doing these things. Yet the Uyghurs, they can't do any of these things. In fact, just before you joined, I showed a video in which an Arab blogger, I'm not sure if you've seen it, Louisa, there's an Arab blogger who actually goes to, I think it's Kashgar and these types of places, and he actually sees that the mosques are closed and it's Ramadan. And there's a guy who's somewhere in the street, and there's some sort of shop, and he asks the guy, are you fasting? And his Chinese interpreter says, are you fasting? And that Uyghur, you can tell he's scared, so he picks up some food and eats it. Like, he doesn't say, I'm not fasting. He actually picks it up and eats it because they know, okay, that's what I got to do. And a lot of people watching that video, they could see the fear in the eyes of the Uyghurs when a Muslim is walking around and asking them and saying, Assalamu alaikum. One guy, the Arab says to him, Assalamu alaikum. And he says, Wale, and he doesn't even complete it. And he just says, oh, do you want to buy something? Right. And you can see that, we're humans. We can tell if there's fear in eyes of other people. So in this month of Ramadan, if we are not going to give our wealth to support and defend people, what is the point in a way of, even breaking your fast with luxurious food? Fine, just don't order, amazing food. Everybody, if we can dig deep, we can give money. I mean, one of the donations, I just wanted to highlight, there's this sister from Sweden, Sister Samira, she's 14, right? So she's a kid. Yeah, and I want to give this as an inspiration to everybody. I'm just going to find her message, right? She said she's going to donate $20 to $40, but I'm just 14 and financially dependent, so I can't give more. Samira, that is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, there's some people who've donated 1,000, some people donated 500, but honestly, your donation as a 14-year-old is going to be an inspiration to everybody, right? It's going to be an inspiration to everybody. And trust me, you're donating in the right place, and the impact that you're going to have is going to be phenomenal.
Thank you, Samira. I mean, your heart is just glowing with something that's really going to have huge ripples. Thank you.
And one of our volunteers, Muhammad Hadib, the Uyghur Freedom Organization's guy in Canada, He said, forget about the pie today at iftar and donate $7 to $10. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
That's great. And you can also think of a donation as a way to help Uyghurs who can't have iftar, right? So here's the story. This actually started more than 10 years ago. At 4 o'clock in the morning, basically an hour before sunrise in Urumqi, the capital of the Uyghur region, there would be police cars going around the streets and through the apartment, into apartment complexes. And they're looking up at the windows looking for a light.
Wow.
And if there's a light on, the police have to go in the elevator up there, knock on the door, and you have to open the door. Why? To find out if the family is eating before sunrise.
That's crazy.
And right. And so this is especially true for government workers, but that would include teachers, anyone working in a government office, government import-export company, any normal job, not just people who work for the government. You'll lose your job if you're, you get a warning and then you lose your job if you're fasting. So the ban on Ramadan fasting has been going on for many years. The punishment might be losing a job. Now you're going to a concentration camp. And the other thing they do is really hurting. So a Uyghur, like a shop, a restaurant, cafe, restaurant, you must be open during the day. If a restaurant owner who's serving wonderful Uyghur food closes during the daylight hours during Ramadan, they will be considered to be sort of a religious extremist. So they are forced to open during the day when normally, of course, you might close and have longer hours after sunset. That's the extreme case where the Uyghurs cannot fast and cannot, iftar itself is suspicious. So for everyone who's able to enjoy the celebration of iftar this entire month, think about Uyghurs who are sent to prison. If they just have a normal Ramadan, it's a prisonable offense. And so we'd love to have your support so we can fight on their behalf.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for joining us today, Louisa. I just want to say thank you to everybody that was donating. More donations are coming in. We're going to finish the live stream now. However, keep the donation up. We have a target of 100,000. That is, like I said, guys, it's not a lot of money compared to the impact it's going to have. And it's definitely not a lot of money compared to already the work that the Uyghur Human Rights Project has done. And the example I gave was Tursane. Is there any last message you'd like to give everybody in the month of Ramadan, Louisa?
Well, I wish everybody a holy Ramadan and rest and reflection. And we all need to use this time to refresh ourselves and refresh our commitment to the good, the true, and justice and goodness in the world. And thank you for including the Uyghurs in your own practice of Ramadan, your prayers and your donations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louisa. For everybody watching, Assalamu alaikum, and hopefully we will be live again in a few